Welcome to Breakfast Central on a Tuesday morning. Thank you very much for joining us. To our viewers here in Nigeria and across the continent, we hope you enjoy the next 2 hours with us. And of course, as always, remember you can join us in the second half of Breakfast Central, share your thoughts with us on some of the conversations that we're having this morning and also some of the big stories making headlines across the newspapers. Some of the conversations, of course, across Nigeria in the last 24 hours are still centered around Kano State with new court orders banning the Aminu Ado Bayero from, of course, posing himself as the Emir of Kano, the involvement of the Nigerian military and, of course, the federal government, and many other aspects to that conversation, that have developed in the last 24 hours that we're going to be sharing with you, of course, as we follow that story. And also a final acceptance of the fraud called Nigeria Air. The Minister of Aviation yesterday, Festus Keyamo, mentioned that, of course, that project has been suspended or will be suspended. He called it a fraud. And, of course, if you remember, I had followed that project, on unspecified amount of money, maybe hundreds of millions of naira, maybe billions of naira, was invested in that project. That many Nigerians pointed out was, seemed very fraudulent. The former Minister of Aviation, Haji Sirika, of course, is currently having his day in court as, of course, he was granted bail a couple of days ago for numerous charges against himself, his daughter, and his son-in-law. But, of course, the most important aspect of this is the Nigerian government finally accepting that Nigeria Air was a fraud. And I'm hoping, of course, a lot of people are hoping that there will be proper conversations, proper investigations, and every single person who was involved in that fraud against the Nigerian people and against the Nigerian government will, be made to face, the justice. We have Lekon Nabanjo who's joining us with Breakfast Headlines. Good morning, Lekon.
Good morning to you, Osai. It's nice to be here this morning.
Good to see you. What are your thoughts, first of all, in Kano State and, of course, the Nigeria Air fraud?
Well, it's quite interesting what is actually happening in Kano State. For me, what actually hurts me the most is that we have these decades, if not centuries old Kano Empire that has been dragged into the mud because of parochial interests and the use of political power with impunity. But in all of this, what is important is for us to know what the court would actually say in terms of the final verdicts that will be given in June as regards who holds legitimate claim to that particular throne. If there's anything that I like about this, is the fact that security personnel or details were deployed, whether or not it was right on the part of the presidency, but the fact that we have security details in the city to prevent and preempt any form of escalation of violence, at least we're able to preserve the sanctity and the peace in the state. That is very, very important for me. But then when you look at all of this, it actually drags a particular empire or a particular kingdom into the mud because we just have someone who's just trying to use his authority to perpetrate impunity.
Yeah, I mean, just also mention, for a long time, I've seen a few people share information about this and also read a little bit. It feels like for a long time, the Kano State, the MI's position has been politicized to some extent. There's governors who have come in and, preferred to have the 5, emirate councils, and then there's been those who believe that Kano should have one traditional ruler, and that is the Emir of Kano, nobody else. And so it feels like, every couple of years, a new governor comes in and, decides, that he would like to, break down the Emir of Kano's seat into numerous, emirate councils. And then, right after that, a new governor comes in because, if you remember, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, when he was governor, of course, had his own feelings concerning the Emirate Council. Of course, he made Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, the Emir of Kano. Ganduje, of course, felt different, decided that he was going to break it into 5. The current governor now, Abba Yusuf, feels like there should be one Emir of Kano, not 5, not 4, not 7. And so it's just a continued game of politics being played with the Emir of Kano's seat, unfortunately, from what I see.
Well, basically, that's what it is. Whether you want to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, kingdoms, so to speak, the reason it's more important than the action. Why? of course, when you look at it, you discover that this has been an empire or a kingdom that has been in place right from time. So if you want to balkanize it, the question is, for what reason? What are you trying to achieve? But then it boils down to the fact that the power of royalty or the influence of royalty in the country has been whittled down. Of course, it's under the jurisdiction of the government of the states. So they do not really have powers to actually say or oppose whatever it is that the government or a particular regime in a state would decide to do. But then basically that's what it is. What are you trying to achieve in the first place? Is it that there's not been enough ruling? Is it that there's not been enough support from this kingdom?
Yeah.
What actually are you trying to achieve? But whatever the case is, I tell you, sir, it's just for us to understand who actually should be at the helm of affairs in terms of the Kano Emirate.
Yeah.
And we just move forward from there.
Yeah, and it's getting, really messy now. Of course, there was, said to be a court order by a judge who, the Kano State government said it's not even in Nigeria. Right after that, we heard about a new court order, stopping Aminu Ado Bayero from posing himself as, the Emir of Kano. So, it seems like there's more and more drama. Quickly talk about Nigeria Air also. The Minister of Aviation yesterday, of course, described it as a fraud. Hadi Sirika is having his day in court, What are your thoughts?
So for me, I actually want to put myself in the position of Festus Keyamo and ask myself, how do I feel having to finally come out and swallow my pride and admit, because this was actually a perpetration of fraud under the same party, the same administration that Festus Keyamo defended for the course of 8 years. Now, it speaks so much to the impunity that has been perpetrated by this particular administration, of course, this particular party for this couple of years, and the fact that we had to wait this long for Festus Keyamo to now come out and admit that, oh, it's a fraud. It speaks so much about how they are able to, come up with internal mechanism to actually monitor what actually, those they have been able to put in power on places of position to administer over the course of course, what a government would want, what it means. Because when we have a situation of someone in power and another person in power within the same confines of government coming out to perpetrate evil, so to speak, as I would put it, and it had to take this long for them to come out and admit it, then, integrity is at stake, credibility is at stake. Absolutely. What Nigerians would also be feeling at this point is at stake. We have a new administration in power. Is that going to continue? Yeah,
absolutely. We'll see how it turns out. I mean, the next couple of days, it's going to be the 29th, tomorrow, but, time will tell how the Nigeria air fraud will be investigated and, what new findings would have. Liko, we'll see you in a bit, while you share breakfast headlines.
And now we take you through the headlines of Breakfast Central, and we tell you that Kano High Court has ordered the deposed Emir of Kano, Aminu Ado Bayero, to stop parading himself as the Emir. The court also directed the police commissioner to evict him from the mini palace on State Road. The court, presided over by Justice Amina Adamu Aliyu, gave the order on Monday. Similarly, the order restrained Alhaji Nasiru Ado Bayero, Ibrahim Abubakar II, Kabiru Mohammed Inoa, and Alhaji Aliyu Ibrahim Gaya from parading themselves as emirs of Bichi, Gaya, Rano, and Karaye. A security expert says President Bola Tinubu has recorded significant improvements on the fight against security challenges, which hitherto jeopardized socio-economic and political development of the country. Dr. Yahuza Getso noted that security situations, especially in the northern part of the country, has improved. According to him, the appointment of the right persons into strategic offices and other measures made this possible. He added that the working synergy between the security agencies and effective monitoring of their performance by the Office of the National Security Advisor also contributed immensely in crippling Boko Haram insurgency, with many of the extremists surrendering to the constituted authority. Away from that, the year 2024 has been a roller coaster ride for the Nigerian Naira. New Central's business correspondent Perpetual Fasoni Peter, who has been tracking the Naira in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's first year, reports that it has been a year of promises, pronouncements and policies aimed at taming inflation, stabilizing the exchange rate and ultimately bringing some peace to the Nigerian Naira. But as the central bank achieved those goals under Governor Olayemi Cardoso? Well, she has more in this report.
The budget that I've glimpsed.
On May 29, 2023, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu pledged to unify the country's exchange rate, and by June 14, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, confirmed it had instituted a managed float, causing the Naira to depreciate from 464 Naira 50 kobo to about 700 Naira within 24 hours.
The way it is at the moment, more businesses would fold up because you cannot do business in Nigeria without forex. Whether we like it or not, we are still heavily import dependent. And the only means of transaction is forex, particularly dollars.
Inflationary pressure.
Olayemi Cardoso began his tenure as CBN governor on October 5, 2023, and in his November 24th speech outlined the bank's new policy direction.
Under my leadership, our monetary policies will aim to achieve price stability, foster economic growth, stabilize the exchange rate of the Naira, and reduce interest rates to facilitate borrowing and investments in the real sector. New foreign exchange guidelines and legislation will be developed, and extensive consultations will be conducted with banks and FX operators before implementing any new requirements.
In 2024, the Naira opened at 907 Naira 1 kobo per dollar and depreciated by 37.6% to 1,455 Naira 59 kobo by the end of January, with a single trading session drop of over 33% on Monday, 29th January.
Everything is on the high side. Everything, both Naira, if Nigeria can even try, our government can, let us stop of this using of dollar. Because dollar, ugu, they are calling dollar. Tomatoes, dollar is cost. So I don't know where the problem is, actually.
To Southern Africa now. Early voting began in South Africa's general election Monday as those who must work on polling day or have special needs were given a chance to cast their ballots. According to the Independent Electoral Commission, around 1.6 million out of the 27.6 million strong electorates were allowed to go early. Election agents will visit 624,000 people with mobility issues at home, while essential workers will attend polling stations 2 days earlier than the general populace. On Wednesday, the rest of the country will be called to vote in South Africa's 6th general election, 3 decades after the advent of democracy in 1994. The vote could prove a historic turning point if, as opinion polls predict, the ruling African National Congress loses its absolute parliamentary majority for the first time. And also, in Sosha-Gombe, sprawling township in North Pretoria, residents say they live in fear of the rampant lawlessness as one family mourns their young child killed during a violent carjacking. Crime has also become a hotbed issue ahead of the May 29 general elections.
We're even afraid to get out of our houses at night. We're afraid to drive our cars at night because of this crime that's happening in Sosha-Gombe. I think that the cops need to do something better than what they are doing now. We are prisoners in our own homes, and this has to stop, really. We are going to elections. Who are we going to vote for with crime? It's like this. So really, it's hurting. From the bottom of my heart, it's hurting.
If you stay around this area, you've got to be very much vigilant because anything is possible. We don't see the police patrollers. We only see them when the incident has happened like this one, when somebody's dead. We'll see minister coming. We'll see most of the cars that are the police around, but during the day or during when, you'll never see even one car of the police patrol in the area.
And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. It's now back to Osa and Olive.
Thank you very much for bringing us Breakfast Headlines. We'll see you again at 9 a.m.
Oh, definitely. Thank you.
All right. And that's all we have this morning on Breakfast Headlines. It's time for us to look into our top stories this morning. I'll be doing that right after this break. The Bayelsa and Kogi State Governorship Election Petition Court, sitting in Abuja, have affirmed the victories of Governors Doye of Bayelsa State and Usman Ododo of Kogi State in the November 11th of cycle polls. In a unanimous judgment, both tribunals held that the petitions were lacking in merit and the petitioners failed to prove their cases before the courts. Marvelous Ubomanu reports.
A sound of victory and a clear reason to celebrate by supporters of the Bayelsa and Kogi State governors, chanting songs in celebration following the decision by both tribunals which reaffirmed the election victories of their principals. In the case of Bayelsa, Justice Adekunle Adeleye-led three-member tribunal dismissed the petition filed by the All Progressives Congress and its candidate, Timipre Silva, as lacking in merit. This did not go down well with the petitioner.
Well, unfortunately, the decision was given by the tribunal today against us. We are officers in the Temple of Justice. We will study the judgment and then we shall decide what to do.
The case of our opponents was built on a very weak foundation. And if you listen to the judgment, you see that their case, the evidence was deficient both in quality and in quantity. And as the court said, the allegations were not proved.
This judgment is fair, and I want all parties to accept this. You know, Kogi State belongs to each and every one of us, as we contribute not only in Kogi State but in Project Nigeria. But today's judgment has affirmed the victory of the incumbent governor.
Also, the three-member panel of justices reviewing the Kogi State election, led by Justice Yusuf Brenin Kudu, held that the petitioners did not provide sufficient evidence to prove their case.
Never in the history of our electoral matters did the petitioners in this case go the extra mile to secure beavers machines that were used for this election. And not only that, the contents were demonstrated in the open to the hearing of everyone in an attempt to prove overvoting. And the evidence in that regard was overwhelming. And that was supposed to be a game changer, a turning point in our electoral process. But in the judgment delivered, the tribunal, in its wisdom, decided to jettison the evidence of PW1 and INEC staff.
The judgment has just been delivered, and what would I say? We are happy that the way we have seen it from day one is exactly the way the tribunal has seen it by way of its judgment today. So we are happy.
By this decision, all the legal disputes around the Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi State elections have been laid to rest for now. The petitioners still reserve the right to appeal. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Oboman.
All right, thank you very much, Marvelous Oboman, for that. Speaking about appealing, there, of course, have been rejections. A number of people who have been aggrieved by the results of the elections. Timipre Silva has been very much dissatisfied with the result of the elections in Bayelsa State, and I said he will appeal it. There was also an article, I think it was his press statement, in Kogi State, the SDP, Ajaka, the SDP representative in Kogi State, he wrote a long article, I think he called it A Long Walk to Freedom, talking about how they might have lost the battle, but they haven't lost the war, just urging Kogites, I think that's how he referred to them, to just stay the course, as it's going to be a really long haul. He applauded his lawyers, said they put together a fantastic fight and a great case, but that it's a long journey ahead. It was really a long, inspiring, felt like an aluta continua kind of article. But
well, you can't really blame them. I think, you know, as much as, I mean, everyone has a right to challenge, you know, the elections, but you know, it once again brings back the conversation about, you know, what type of elections we actually even had in 2023. presidential, and of course state governorship elections, there were too many flaws, for you to not expect that there would be multiple lawsuits.
Yes.
It feels like, the Nigerian judiciary, there's major players in the Nigerian judiciary that just wait for election year because that is when they have the most work, and you would just expect it, the flaws from INEC, the flaws from the process, the flaws from collation, the flaws from, the INEC officers. There's just too many things that just didn't go as promised and as planned, So you would expect that, yes, there would be. And, of course, it's left for the court or for, of course, those challenging those elections to prove in court, that they have a case. We've also gotten to see that it's not very easy proving, electoral fraud and electoral issues. It's very, very, very difficult. There's too many, loopholes through which the defense will be able to, somehow, some way,
there have been very few situations where we see that the decision has been overturned. Very few.
Yeah.
And, they stand out quite easily. But the norm is that we see those who have been elected, their positions or their office being criticized, and the mode by which they were being elected being criticized. I mean, it's not just in Bayelsa State or in Kogi State, speaking about off-cycle elections, also in Imo State. Ethan Achono, of course, vehemently rejected the results. But, these are conversations that are ongoing. We move away from the updates regarding the elections to talk about another story. The Academic Staff Union of Universities Calabar Zone has opposed the proposed student education loan of the federal government. We'll be looking at the details of this story shortly. But, it's just to talk about exactly what the students' loan, the updates regarding the student loan. The Academic Staff Union of Universities Calabar Zone has opposed the proposed student education loan of the federal government, describing it as a ploy to enslave Nigerian students and make them remain indebted to the country forever. Addressing a press conference in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State capital, on Monday, the zonal chairperson of ASU, Dr. Happiness Uduk, said it was disheartening that the people who attended schools on scholarship enjoyed meal subsidies, bursary awards, among others, were the ones making some of these obnoxious policies, adding that the union will not relent in opposing such policies. Uduk, in a statement jointly signed by the 8 union chairpersons, reasoned that instead of giving loans for student education, federal government could use the money for interventions in higher institutions.
She added that such a move would bring about a positive turnaround of events that would make the institution self-reliant with highly subsidized tertiary education in the country. And of course, there we have it. The conversations on student loans continues. Of course, President did make a statement yesterday, of course, announcing that it has officially been kicked off. And so, those, of course, who would be eligible for it, I expect that they will take advantage of the student loans. There's about 5 billion that has been set aside for it. All right, moving on. The 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi, has addressed the possibility of a merger between the Labour Party and the People's Democratic Party. There have been speculations of a merger ahead of the 2027 elections, and this gained traction when Atiku Abubakar, the PDP's candidate in the last election, announced on May 17th that he would support Peter Obi if the parties merge and the presidential ticket is ceded to the Southeast region.
In a recent interview with Noah TV Global Black TV, Peter Obi emphasized that he's only open to a coalition aimed at creating a better and more effectively governed Nigeria, rather than just focusing on electoral success or state control. Obi stressed the importance of working together, whether at the party or individual level, to unlock Nigeria's potential and build a better nation. We're joined this morning by Chief Spokesperson for Peter Obi and Director of Media, Labour Party, Tanko Yunusa. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. The conversation about a possibility of a merger happening has been an off and on conversation floating around in the atmosphere. Are we confirming for certain that there is a strong likelihood of that happening this time?
Well, prior to even the election in 2023, there were discussions with various groups and political parties. I think I made this particular such statement on this particular platform. 5 political parties were being penciled out for discussion, and unfortunately that didn't happen. This political party include the SDP, PRP, ADP, and then the ADC with ZN Labour Party. Unfortunately, that discussion did not go through because of time. But here we are again. starting early and discussing. Yes, there is possibility, but with regard to my principal, that is His Excellency Peter Gregory Obi, he has made it very clear that if we are to go into any merger, it must be based on a program. And these programs are very clear. These are basic three things that we need, which are just water, healthcare, good roads, and then education for the people, and eventually the issue of security in the country. So if we have a 3 or 4 cardinal points for a discussion that can join us together, that will make more meaning than only for us to start thinking about only getting power only. And then, you know, the story behind only getting power has been a abysmal performance in the last regime of the APC, and even as we are going through the particular humongous and heinous leadership that's already been maintained on the country. So all of these must be clearly defined. And if we didn't clearly define for the interests of the Nigerian people, well, why not? Let's clearly define the objective of what we are going into. But a merger could have been a very beautiful one, considering the fact that these particular people have the government on their side. They have stolen, poached money on their own side. And so challenging them will be very, very humongous and very, very, very huge. So we need everybody to make sure that Nigeria is on the right path.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned, you know, some of the details, you know, with which or that would define, you know, a measure that Peter Obi would like to get himself involved with. You know, it's not just to take over power, but there's people who would argue, you know, that, I mean, the main goal really is to take over power. And so, you know, it sounds like a waste of time if you are trying to contest an election without, you know, doing all that is necessary to win the election. So I want your response to that. And then, you know, for those who, you know, also say that you may have to, you know, shift a little bit on some of your ideals if you want to have a merger. The mindset of the people in these other parties cannot be the same mindset of the, you know, people in Labour Party. And so if you want to have a possible merger, you cannot, you know, basically expect everyone to come perfect. You would have to make some changes, make some adjustments to your expectations, you know, for such a merger to be possible. What do you think?
You see, there's this adage that says that when you dance, somebody may dance so roughly and then get paid for it. And somebody may dance that beautifully well and get a cane around his bum bum. Does happen. But it is better for you to really go into something that you know that you have done the critical analysis of. From the past experience we have seen, many of the people who have gone into a merger reposition did not do it on the basis of delivering, you know, the deliverable to the benefit of the Nigerian people. And it has turned out to be negative. So what we are saying basically is that, yes, there's an issue of give and take. Those give and takes usually happen when the issue of positions come in. Who become who? What is the percentage of what we are bringing in and what is commensurate to us if we are forming a government and all of those ones. Those are the issues of give and take. Now, it's agreeable. But here, the basic thing that we're talking about is the cardinal point that will join me and you together. What are we working for? Is it only for us to get power? And when we get power, we don't know what to do with it. And at the end of it all, Nigerian people will continue to challenge us that we just took over power. We didn't plan for it. I'll just give you an example. This particular government did not plan for governance. The only issue for them was that it is my turn. I must be the one. Your turn to do what? That is the question. You must be able to define exactly what you want to achieve. If it's only for governance, it doesn't put food on the table of Nigerians. It's just like you writing a thesis. Without you defining the objective of the question, the end of the problem, your whole thesis is a waste of time. So you must define what you are interested in. As far as we are concerned, we are ready to work together with everybody and then define and then give what is possible for everybody so that all of us can work together and give the best to Nigeria. We are talking about a renewed Nigeria, a rebirth to Nigeria where everybody will be happy about. Okay. We're talking about, we'll be thinking about how to provide support for the Nigerian people. Give and take, yes, when the table discussing the issues that they're in.
All right. Now, should this merger happen, I mean, you have given the conditions upon which your principal will be willing to go into a merger. But should this merger happen, would he be willing to sacrifice the likelihood of being the face of this merger? Now, I ask this because in a recent interview, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar granted to the Voice of America, he did say that he will keep running for president as long as he's healthy, and he was reported to say that there. Now, should this happen, where both parties have to come together, do you see that your principal, Peter Obi, will be willing to sacrifice being the face of this race? I know he's run before in 2019 with Alhaji Atiku Abubakar as his vice. Would he be willing to maybe do that again?
Don't forget, the same Alhaji Atiku Abubakar who says that he's willing to shield the sword and give support to Peter Obi when the time comes that the party cedes the position to the southeast. Already at the moment now, we're talking about a southern president, as the case may be. So it's very, very clear. And the idea of whether His Excellency is willing to, His Excellency has always been saying that I'm not desperate to be the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I'm only desperate to see Nigeria works. But don't also forget that His Excellency Peter Obi, when people did not even think that he was going to win anything, he was able to resonate with the Nigerian people. No wonder the champion newspaper gave him the award in Lagos. Just recently, I was in Lagos to receive the award as the most impactful politicians of the year 2023. What that simply means is that he was able to communicate and sell a message, the message that makes a lot of meaning to Nigerians, especially the Nigerian youth. And that makes a lot. And then out of this particular youth, 12.5 million of them came out to register because of the messages that Peter Obi was able to send to them. In democratic setting, mostly there are messages that really make the turns of events. And that, of course, will show you the strength and capacity and quality that what His Excellency Peter Obi has. Now, if you bring that to the table, there are indices and yardsticks that will make you to select who do you think. Age is one, capacity is one, intellectual ability to deal with issues are others, and then the issue of probably rotational basis work is already obtainable logically at the moment now for the unity of this country. All of these funds are already on the table. So it is clear if that particular opportunity comes, we know that a lot of give and take will happen. But we won't force anything on anybody. But His Excellency is willing to build a Nigerian nation that all of us will be happy for. And that is exactly where he stands.
All right. I mean, time will tell, how, these conversations concerning the merger will take, how they will turn. There's just too many arguments, about, why bother, if you're not willing to make, certain adjustments here and there to accommodate those who you want a merger with. But, we're going to get back to that. But I want your quick thoughts. Tomorrow is going to be the 29th of May, 1 year after the inauguration of the current administration. There's different people who have rated them 70%, 40%, 90%. What would your ratings be? How well do you think they have managed Nigeria in the last 1 year?
Look, for me, it's nothing to rate at the moment. You only rate something when there's a yardstick being provided that I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and then you put them together and see whether you are able to achieve that. Then you can give an indices of achievement. The truth about this is that this particular government has a problem of legitimacy issue right from the beginning. And that, of course, had made them to commit so much mistakes and then playing to the gallery, using propaganda and continuously lying to the people, and which is absolutely not necessary. I'll give you an example. The government itself, when it came into power, was dealing with the issue of whether we won the election or we didn't won the election, or we had the credibility to have even stand for election in the first place or not. These are basic issues. And of course, we also know that the previous regime has removed the issue of this subsidy. This particular government did not allude to the same fact by saying that, look, this government that we're taking off with and the former government have already removed the issue of subsidy from our budget. So we are only following suit. But what they did was also announce as if it's their own credit to them. What they thought would have been the credit ended up boomeranging, because already at the time in which they took over power, the Nigerian people are already walloping in terms of pain and pang. What they did was they pro-maxed that particular pain and pang. diplomacy without even caring, knowing exactly what the solution would have been. So that became a big problem. Communication is an issue, and the issue of deliverable of good dividends to the Nigerian people, good dividends of democracy to the Nigerian people was not respected. And at the same time, they kept on lying upon lying. You see, lies cost you a lot of things. When you lie, you'll be looking for another lie to cover up the other lie. And then here we are, instead of solving the problems of the Nigerian people, that are only adding more pain. Here, let me explain. You're talking about taxation. You are taxing the people on a continuous basis as a way in which you can shower in money to the government, to the purse of government. And at the same time, it's the same people that you're supposed to provide support for that you are taxing. Meanwhile, a couple of your own leaders are stealing this particular money for their own benefit. So there is a complete confusion within them, the system. So, and they are refusing to accept to that particular fact that they are fundamental mistake. They only take decisions and come back and say, no, we are reverting it. After already, that particular decision they have taken has already affected the people negatively. And the people can't recover. They only manage. It's not that, I keep on saying that it's only in Nigeria that they are ridiculously patient. The thing that we do in this country, just 1/4 of it is enough to unseat somebody. But we Nigerians, we are resilient, and we are patient, and we continue to do what we need to do. But the truth is that, honestly, this particular government have not been able to define its objective and following its suit for the interest of the people. Mark my word, interest of the people, that is first. It is only when the people are comfortably okay that they collaborate with you to develop. But when you keep on putting on pain and pain for them, they will only look for succor somewhere else. And that, of course, has dovetailed into the issue of insecurity, a lack of education, and lack of economic investment, and lack of clear-cut policies that will help the country with a lot of understanding on the part of the people. This has to be looked into.
Okay, so permit me to interject because we're running out of time. We need to quickly wrap up the conversation. We know that plans are being made for the 2027 elections, and Peter Obi has been said to have been meeting with a number of people. We hear that he's met with Rabiu Kwankwaso and the number of technocrats that he's met. Would you share with us maybe some of the people he's meeting and what the plans are looking like from here on?
Like I said, the last time he visited the northern part of the country, where he had contact with the Almajiris, he had contact with nurses, he had contact with technocrats, the youth and all. He was able to understand that there's a humongous wealth in this country that is untapped. Brilliant young boys and girls. So, and then the needs of the people become germane to him. And that was the major reason why he's reaching out to most of these leaders, because you know, each of these particular leaders have a lot of people around them who need help. So why don't you start thinking about how to provide this assistance and help to this particular people? That is the major reason why he's reaching out to them. Of course, you know, when you meet politicians and all, issue of how do we collaborate and merge or align and all will come up. And that is the result of what you are seeing at the moment now. So there are an array of people that he's meeting. And when he comes back, he will continue on that particular journey because he's now out of the country. But immediately he comes back, he's going to continue on that journey of reaching out to a lot of Nigerians who have capacity to say, okay, look, I, Peter W.B., wants to build like 50 boreholes in certain area as a short-term plan. But at the same time, we need to find a way of helping these people economically and dealing with the issue of security. What expertise do you have? I have this, you have that, let's work together.
All right.
That will have helped to that all of us will be interested in.
Okay, we're hoping that maybe by the next time we have you join us, you share with us who are some of these people that he's meeting with, the ones he's met with, and you can, give us further insights into how the plans for 2027 is looking like, because we're already seeing that every party is bracing up. Mr. Yunusa, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have had you this morning.
The Kano State High Court, led by Justice Amina Adamu Aliyu yesterday, ordered the Kano Commissioner of Police to immediately evacuate Aminu Ado Bayero from the Nasarawa Palace. The court issued an interim injunction preventing Alhaji Aminu Ado Bayero and four other dethroned emirs of Bichi, Rano, Gaya and Karaye from presenting themselves as emirs until the motion of notice filed by the applicants is heard and determined.
The presiding judge made this order after hearing an ex parte application by the applicant's counsel, Barrister Ibrahim Issa Wangida, dated 27 May 2024. The injunction specifically restrains the dethroned emirs and any person acting on their behalf from continuing to act in their former capacities as emirs. This development comes amid ongoing tensions with the Kano government attributing chaos over Sanusi's reinstatement to ulterior motives. We are joined by New Central correspondent Emmanuel Bagudu much later, but for now we're joined by lawyer Ibrahim Issa Wangida, who is an active part of this case. Good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, my sister. Good morning, viewers.
All right. Can you please bring us up to speed as to where we are regarding this case? It's been a number of controversies circulating on the internet, but bring us up to speed with the update and the mood in Kano State after yesterday's development.
Well, we are grateful to the Almighty God for the peace we are enjoying in Kano State, particularly after the order of the Kano State High Court yesterday. If you have been following up the developments in social media and other medias, you understand that Kano State have been in a little bit of a tense for a while. But however, from the demeanor and the behaviors of the people of Kano State, I believe you know that Kano State have gotten what they wanted, because when their beloved Emir was dethroned in 2020, you could see that a lot will have happened, but because of how law-abiding they have been, we were able to contain the situation. But our greatest amazement is that where a law or the State House of Assembly that dethroned the former Emir now felt out of the yearnings of the people that justice was not done, and they decided to reverse their decision as provided by the laws of this country, which is the Constitution. And ordinarily, all things, I will have said that things have been well, not until the dethroned Emir, Aminu Ado Bayero, was brought in back to Kano after he personally decided to leave, as ordered by the Kano State House of Assembly and assented by the governor. Right. His return to Kano actually was not a peaceful one, because a lot will have happened if not that the Kano people really understand the politics behind all those things. All right. But after yesterday's order, I assure you that Kano is more peaceful now. Everybody have gone back to his business, and we are enjoying the peace, and we are believing that people of Kano State will go out to do their normal activities. All right.
When we come back, we'd like you to talk to us about the legality or otherwise, or the implication of Justice Liman's order stopping the reinstatement of Sanusi Lamido. But we'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about that. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're, of course, looking at the ongoing power tussle in the Emirate in Kano State, and we're, of course, joined by Ibrahim Issa Wangida. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, before we went on the break, I had said to you that we're going to speak about Governor Abba Yusuf's allegation that Justice Mohammed Liman of the Federal High Court in Kano State gave the order stopping the reinstatement of Sanusi Lamido as the 16th Emir of Kano State all the way from the United States. Now, this has caused a lot of controversy. While some argue that if the court is sitting virtually, then the judge can, of course, give his ruling from any part of the world because he has global jurisdiction. Others argue that, he should function within a certain territory, that the Nigerian judicial system functions within certain territorial authority. There are several arguments for and against it, and I wanted to find out what your thought is on that. Unfortunately, we seem to be having network challenges. We're hoping that Mr. Wangida can join us. There have been several controversies regarding what's happening in Kano State, while some also talk about the multiple orders that have been given, and they will then bring up the law of equity, where they will see where there are two equal equities, the first and time prevails. So there have been those who have clamored that the situation be returned to status quo pending the determination of the court. All right, we're joined by our guest again. Thank you very much, Mr. Wangida, for joining us. Would you have me repeat the question, or did you get it?
Thank you very much.
All right.
As regards the issue of Honorable Justice Liman's court order, actually there are 3 or 4 issues that we need to understand. As a lawyer, I wish to state that one of the fundamental aspects of every court order is the jurisdiction of the courts, which of course has to do with the formation of the courts, which also have to do with the method or the style at which the processes before the court was filed. First of all, I wish to state that it is very clear and very obvious that the process that was filed before Justice Liman is an abuse of court processes, because we know that there are so many decided authorities that clearly stated the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court, which we are saying that issues that has to do with chieftaincy title, the Federal High Court has no jurisdiction to entertain such a title. But a very interesting aspect of the Justice Liman order is the fact that even the judge himself, in his order, had made it very clear that he is in doubt of his jurisdiction to grant such reliefs. And where a judge is in doubt, I believe that that doubt ordinarily is supposed to be exercised in favor of the defendants, because at nowhere in time will you give an order that will have an issue, or will you give such an order when you are not sure of your own jurisdiction. So the first question that one will always ask himself is that why will there be
Okay, still, of course, battling with the network, but we're looking at the order that was given by Justice Liman and seeing exactly what guest thinks about it. He's giving us an insight as to what the law says regarding being able to function from outside Nigeria's borders, being able to sit and give the judgment outside Nigeria's borders, and we're hoping that we can reconnect with him and talk more about it. But this is a very important conversation to have. There have been protests that have broken out in different parts of Kano State regarding the current situation. While some are in favor of the balkanization of the Emirates, there are others who think that Sanusi Lamido should, of course, be reinstated. We'll be talking more about this later when we see what Nigerians are saying. We'll head to X and take some of your tweets regarding the situation in Kano State. But I believe that, I don't know that if our guest is back here with us. All right, let's try with you again. Mr. Wangida, are you here with us? Can you hear me? We apologize for the network challenges that we're experiencing this morning. I mean, it's one of the challenges of technology. I'm hoping that we can actually have a conversation. If you can't hear me, please go ahead. You were listing some of the issues that we need to contemplate. You did mention that even the judge himself was not sure of his jurisdiction. He wasn't quite sure about his the ability to grant those reliefs from outside the country. Please go ahead.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Not just outside the country. When we talk of jurisdiction of the court, it goes beyond where the judge is sitting. It also has to do with the parties involved in the matter. This issue being a chieftaincy affair, the Federal High Court
All right. Still struggling with the connection there from Ibrahim Wangida. If you can sort your audio issues out, we can barely hear you, so we can get the conversation going. Of course, get some clarity as to what exactly are the issues with the court cases. If you remember, we did speak with the special advisor to the Kano State governor yesterday, and he clarified, according to him, that they did not get served any court order, even from Justice Liman. They didn't get served any court order asking that Sanusi Lamido Sanusi stop, of course, opposing as the Emir of Kano. They didn't get any court order. And of course, he also said, that maintaining status quo, whenever they get presented with the court order to maintain status quo, would have to, of course, continue from when they receive it. But of course, yesterday we did get more information that a new court order has been given by Justice Aminu Aliyu, of course, who has then asked that Aminu Ado Bayero stop presenting himself as the Emir of Kano. So, of course, the drama continues, the developments, of course, continue. Mr. Wangida, can you hear us now?
Very well, I can hear you.
All right, so just quickly go ahead. We need to wrap the conversation up soon. So go ahead and talk about that court order, and then also the details about this new court order we're hearing of now that stops Aminu Ado Bayero from posing as the Emir of Kano.
Yeah, just as I rightly said, the jurisdiction of Justice Liman's order actually is a serious issue. Apart from the fact that he himself is not sure of his jurisdiction, I equally stated that it is a known law that a court can only assume jurisdiction after issuing such an order when the order is served on the person on whom which the order is to be served. Very interestingly, if you look at Justice Liman's order, you also see clearly that the Emir Sanusi is not part of the suit. Therefore, there is no way such an order can actually be, enforced on him. Secondly, apart from the fact that up till now, the Kano State House of Assembly, the Speaker, and the Kano State government have not been served with this order. So therefore, the jurisdiction of that same court cannot be activated, because you gave an order and the people whom you gave the order against are only citing the order on social media. And there is not any order issued or given by Justice Liman to say that serve these defendants via social media. So as far as we are concerned, Justice Liman's order is not yet activated because it has not been served on the people affected. Secondly, if you look at that same order, the order says you should maintain status quo. I want to assure you that as a lawyer, I know that as of 12 o'clock in the midnight, that order was not granted by Justice Liman. And as of 1 p.m. of that day, the Kano State House of Assembly have already finished their law, and the Governor of Kano State, His Excellency Abba Kabir Yusuf, has already assented and reappointed Emir Sanusi as the Emir of Kano State. So if such an order of Justice Liman that was not granted as of 11 p.m., is asking that there should be a maintenance of status quo, that simply means whatever must have transpired from 10:45 down to, during the day, that is exactly what should be maintained. And as of that hour, the Justice Liman issued his order. Emir Sanusi has already been reinstated by the Kano State government. So if there is any status quo that must be maintained, it is that His Royal Highness Sanusi Lamido Sanusi be maintained as the Emir of Kano State.
Right. So quickly talk about the ruling by Justice Amina Adamu Aliyu. Quickly, please.
Yes, you see, why we await the order of Justice Liman to be served on the proper parties, and it was not served. Of course, we know that, just as I rightly said, that it is only the Kano State High Court that have jurisdiction, to interfere or to interpret or to say anything as far as the Emirate Council of Kano State is concerned. And that is why we decided to say, okay, since Aminu Ado Bayero, who was dethroned, is now sitting in a government facility which belongs to the Emir. We cannot have two Emirs in Kano. So the best thing to do is to rush to the court that have proper jurisdiction, competent jurisdiction to determine the issue. We presented our case, attach all the exhibits that are necessary before the court, and the court goes through this same exhibit and our affidavit and order that Aminu Ado Bayero be ejected out of the government property, because where he is living belongs to the Emir of Kano State, and he ceased to be an Emir. Therefore, the court order, which was granted yesterday, is properly granted against a party who is actually going to be affected. Unlike that of Justice Liman that was granted against Emir Sanusi, and is never a party to that suit. So the order of yesterday is properly granted because it was granted by a court of competent jurisdiction and against proper parties who actually are affected by that order.
All right, Ibrahim Issa Wangida, thank you very much for your time with us. We, of course, will be following up with the updates in Kano State to see exactly what happens going on from here.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be with you.
It's a pleasure to have had you. We still have with us, still talking about the Kano State situation. We're joined by News Central's correspondent, Emmanuel Bagudu, who, of course, has been following this situation very closely. Good morning, Emmanuel. Thank you very much for joining us. Talk to us about the reports that you've been able to gather, especially how the people of Kano State have reacted to the latest development in this case.
It has been a series of restlessness in Kano here. Yeah, in fact, following the court order that came in last night, Kano people have just been ambitious. I would like to say anxiety, just so anxious to see how development unfolds. So what happened is that there's a court order that just came in last night, and that court order mandates the police to arrest the post-emir Aminu Ado Bayero and then take him away from his Nasarawa house. So that is what is new now, and is bringing anxiety in the minds of people of Kano. So what we're doing now is to just follow up, to check out. The police told us 2 days ago that they are respecters of law and order, they are respecters of court order, whether right or wrong. So today, what we're doing now is to see whether they're going to follow that order by arresting Aminu Ado Bayero or not, or by enforcing what the court order says yesterday.
All right, and also, do you have any updates regarding the protests that had sprung up in the past few days in different parts of Kano State?
Yes, protests will still continue today, because we were there when the process started, and we are still monitoring. We are going to go into the two palaces today, because Kano right now is being ruled by two emirates, the emirates of Mohammed Sanusi II and that of Aminu Ado Bayero, who is situated at Gidan Nazasarawa, just some few meters away from the government house.
All right.
So that's what we're going to be doing this morning. So whatever happens, we're going to go out there to find out what is the police, what is security agencies doing about the latest court order that just emanated last night. I
think my final question will be like, have we heard anything from Aminu Ado Bayero himself? When Sanusi was deposed in 2020, a number of people have commended him for the peace message he had sent out. Have we had a similar message from Aminu Ado Bayero, or what exactly is he saying?
If you look at the environments around Aminu Ado Bayero's home, which we have always been monitoring, he doesn't have anything to say, because as far as he's concerned, he's still the Emir of Kano. We did a story about him doing a carnival yesterday, where he came out in his normal royal regalia style. We show him show himself as the Emir of Kano. So we don't expect any comment from any of those parties right now, because both of them still see themselves as the substantive Emir of Kano. But today we're going to be relying on the court order that came in yesterday and see what unfolds as the days goes by.
Well, it's safe to say that things might get a little tougher, and today will be a real deciding factor in how things turn out in Kano State. And we hope that we can have you join us again tomorrow with further update on this case. Emmanuel Bagudu, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us.
Now let's get to the newspapers this morning, share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria. We're joined this morning by Ikechukwu Amechi. He's the publisher of the niche newspapers, and he will, of course, help guide us through these conversations across Nigeria today. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Always my pleasure, sir.
All right. Let's begin this morning with the daily independent newspapers. So we can find it says that AGF makes case for scrapping of state electoral commissions, says their appendage to every incumbent governor, once functions and powers transferred to INEC. AGF Ozekome warned against legislative fiat on national anthem. And also this morning, ASU threatened strike over salary review, varsity funding. We are restarting concession of the nation's major airport, says Festus Keyamo. We can't be intimidated over a decision on Sanusi, says Kano State government. And also trial of Metiala leader begins tomorrow. We can also find here Sanwo-Olu files federal government suit against 36 governors over local government autonomy. And final, Kogi Bayelsa governorship tribunal affirms Ododo Diri's elections. These are the big ones on the Daily Independent.
All right, now let's see the Vanguard newspaper. On the front page of the Vanguard, the big story there says, Labour, private sector operators bicker over minimum wage. Organized labor's 497,000 demand unrealistic, says presidency. Adds affordability key to arriving at any figure. NLC 6 minimum wage for journalists in Nigeria cautions against harassment by security agents. AGF others to National Assembly. Change of anthem by legislative fiat can't work. At the top of the paper, we have Genco's 1.3 trillion naira debt to avoid sector's collapse, Elumelu tells federal government. Edo gubernatorial elections, more trouble for Labour Party as two excos emerge. AGF advocates scrapping of state electoral bodies, conflicting court orders, trail Kano Emirate tussle. Now, if you'd like to be a part of the conversations, we'll be opening the phone line so you can chime in with your thoughts. The numbers to call are on your TV screen this morning. Let's start off with the drama going on in Kano. It is the tale of two emirs currently seating. What do you make of what's happening? There has been the latest update in that story is that there's an order to arrest Bayero. Do you see that happening? And what are your thoughts on what's happening in Kano?
Well, what's going on in Kano is a very good example of what happens to a country when bad politics trumps everything. Bad politics trumps good governance, trumps sensible leadership. Of course, we can go back to 2014. That was when the crisis in Kano State presently started. That was when Lamido Sanusi became the Emir of Kano. If you ask anybody from Kano, they will tell you that Sanusi was not the choice of the people of Kano to succeed late Ado Bayero. But Kwakwanso used Emir Sanusi to play politics to spite the then President Goodluck Jonathan, with whom Sanusi had a running battle as the governor of the CBN. So it was all about politics in the first place that brought Sanusi to power as the Emir of Kano. Because I remember I was in Rivers State. I think the APC governors had a meeting in Rivers State then. It was there, and Kwakwanso was there when the news broke that Ado Bayero had died. And Kwakwanso left Port Harcourt immediately back to Kano, and Sanusi became the emir. But of course, Sanusi, if you know Sanusi well, I don't think that Sanusi has the temperament to occupy such traditional office that has its own nuances, that has its own tradition, that has its own everything. So it was not difficult for anybody. You don't need to be an Nostradamus for you to extrapolate that Sanusi was going to get into trouble. And of course, he did get into trouble with a Ganduje that, again, you can say with the stories around Ganduje, he may not be the best of characters when it comes to leadership, but there were issues. They accused Sanusi of embezzling. People seem to forget all this. Yeah. Sanusi was accused of embezzling the funds of the Kano Emirate Council. His flamboyant lifestyle very much negated the values of the traditional institution. Well, he was removed, and now Aminu Ado Bayero, the man who Kano people insisted was the rightful occupant of the office, was installed. And Ganduje went on to split the monolithic Kano Emirate into 5.
Just to clarify, Aminu Ado Bayero is the son of the person who passed,
yes,
the former emir who passed in 2014.
Yes, former Emir Ado Bayero. Now, so to cut a long story short, what we are saying now is very vile politics now playing out. It is the politics of the center, whether the federal government denies it or not. The fact of the matter is that Emir Aminu Ado Bayero is being supported by the federal government. And that is why the federal government provided
security,
the military. whereas the Sanusi is being backed by the state government. And that is why he's being protected by the vigilante.
You know, but should the federal government be getting involved in a situation like this? When you say federal government, are you talking about, Abdullahi Ganduje or President Tinubu?
Abdullahi Ganduje does not deploy the military. Whenever the military is deployed, the only man who is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Nigeria is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So, Ganduje, it is a fight, no doubt, between Ganduje and Kwakwanso. It is a fight by extrapolation between APC and NNPP. It is a fight between the federal government and the state government. That was why the court judgment that said that the status quo ante should be maintained was obtained from a federal high court. That was the judgment that was given by Justice Lehman. The one that was given yesterday was by a state high court, of course, controlled by the state government. So what is going on in Kano goes beyond Sanusi and Aminu
Ado Bayero.
Emir Bayero. It is a battle of forces, and the idea is who controls Kano State as we move towards 2027. So it's a shame that the traditional institution is being dragged into the muddy waters of politics.
It's been desecrated.
Nothing is sacred again in this country. Everything is being abused on the altar of partisan politics, and it is a shame. However it is resolved, Kano may not be the same again, because each camp is digging in. At the end of the day, the bad blood will still continue.
Do you think that this will have some form of impact looking towards 2027 elections, because everyone has started making plans as well?
It is. It will. And that is the reason why this is not going on. Don't forget that the idea ab initio was to remove Governor Kabir Yusuf through the courts. That failed. Now, if you ask me, I would say that APC is trying to get a foothold still in Kano by backing an emir who they think is popular, and that is Aminu Ado Bayero. So it's all to tailored towards 2027. There are 3 states in this country that anybody who wants to win election must control: Lagos, Kano, and Rivers State, because they have the population. And of course, they have also the resources to do the needful. Yeah. Now, APC, going by the calculations of 2023 elections, does not control any of the states, so to say. We all know what happened in Rivers State. APC did not win any election in Rivers State. Anybody who is telling you that APC won the presidential election in Rivers State is simply being economical with the truth. They lost Lagos. Even the margin that INEC claimed that was the decision in Lagos was not true. APC lost woefully the presidential election in Lagos State in 2023. And of course, they lost in Kano. So they are trying to dig in, using Wike to hold hand Rivers State. Of course, they think they have got back Lagos State by virtue of what they did in the governorship election. So I think the next frontier of the battle now is Kano State.
And unfortunately, the seat of the emir is now the one that has been desecrated and brought into the mix. Yeah. Let's move on to another story.
Yeah, I want us to talk about the AGF and the 36 state governors. There seems to be 2 different battles that they're fighting. You know, the first one, of course, is the AGF making a case for scrapping of state electoral commissions, and of course, also the 36 state governors and their hold on the local government autonomy and local government funds. That also came up yesterday.
On the face value, I would say kudos to the AGF. Latif Nafagbemi. Yes. Because the two issues he is tackling are also at the root of the crisis of governance we have in this country. What we have created, I'm sorry to use the word, in this democracy is that we have monsters all over the place now parading as leaders. A man is elected governor today and he becomes a god. And they violate. In fact, we shout at the federal government, but there is even more democracy at the federal level than what we have at the state level. State governors are dictators, and they have usurped the powers and the functions and even the resources of the local governments. That is why they will not conduct local government elections. Most of the states now have what they call
caretaker committees.
Committees, which is antithetical to the dictates of the 1999 Constitution as amended. The Constitution provides the local government as the fourth tier of government, and they have their resources, which the state governors appropriate. So I wish that the courts will make a ruling on this and come out with something that will be binding on everybody. But coming to the state electoral commission, again, it is the same thing. What Fawemi is saying is true. The state electoral commissions are there at the pleasure, and they operate at the whims and caprices of whoever is the governor. That is why you see almost in every state. I think the only exception was what El-Rufai did when he was governor of Kaduna State, that the opposition political parties were able to win 1 or 2 chairmanship seats. But in every other state, no matter how unpopular the governor is, you find out that the incumbent governor, his party wins 100% all the local government and councillorship seats. But my also take on that, if you say you're going to take over the functions and give them to INEC, I am again sorry to say that the INEC under Professor Mahmoud Yakubu has not done better than state electoral commissions, as it were.
Yeah.
The INEC that conducted the 2023 elections performed well below par and cannot claim, in all honesty, to have done better than the state electoral commission, because the 2023 elections were as rigged as the state governors use the state electoral commissions to rig local government elections. So if you take up this responsibility and you transfer it to INEC, and we still have people like Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, and I'm calling him out this morning deliberately, and you still have people like Professor Mahmoud Yakubu as the chairman of INEC, I am sorry to say, we are not going to have better elections even at the local government level, because what we had at the state and federal level as elections in 2023 are not better than what the state electoral commissions are doing at
the local
government level.
Very quickly, Sanwo-Olu has criticized the federal government, of course, suing the 36 governors, saying that the AGF hasn't done due diligence. Now, he's saying this because he says that Lagos State local government enjoys full autonomy, and he shouldn't, Lagos State should not have been included in the suit. What do you think about this as quickly as possible?
Well, maybe, in the sense that Lagos State government seems to be an exception. It seems to be one state that has consistently conducted elections into the third tier of government. Whether those elections are free and fair is a different thing altogether, because we see also the situation where, like in other states, the APC or any party in power wins almost all the seats, if not all the seats. Whether those elections are free and fair is a different kettle of fish, but they have, in fairness to Sanwo-Olu, Lagos has been consistent. We've not had this, almost the tradition of using traditional caretaker.
No, as far as the election, I think he's also referring to the allocation of funds to local governments, and them being fully autonomous. His argument might be that, local government funds do not come to the state, they go straight to the local government. I'm not sure if that's what he's referring to, but I think it is with the challenge for the 36 state governors by Lateef Fagbemi to allow local government to receive their funds directly and to be fully responsible for themselves. Yeah. So is he claiming, or is the Lagos State governor then claiming that local governments in Lagos receive funds directly?
They don't. They don't. Because what the Constitution says is that the money is paid into the joint state local government account. Perhaps Lagos State is gives the local governments in the state what is due to them. But the truth of the matter is that the Lagos State government has an IGR that is almost 50 billion. So that should be enough to any state government. Why should they also pilfer
from local government
allocation? So he may be correct in saying that the local governments in Lagos State get what comes from the federal government, but it does not go straight to the local government, and that is what Fagbemi is trying to achieve with this suit, to get a Supreme Court order that this money should go directly to the local governments.
All right. Ikechukwu Amishi, very interesting. I truly enjoyed your analysis on the Kano State power tussle there. We hope that it doesn't, further develop into more chaos in the state and, even leave a long-lasting divide in the state. Thank you very much for stopping by and for your thoughts.
Always my pleasure.
All right. Stay with us. We, of course, going to be sharing with you, besides what we are saying and what our guest is saying, what Nigerians in general are saying about some very, very major topics in the country today. Stay with us. That comes up right next.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. It's time for us to talk about what Nigerians are saying, and we're heading to the streets of social media. On the second day of his ministerial sectoral update, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace, Festus Keyamo, gave an update regarding Nigeria Air, stating that it has been suspended indefinitely. Now, he went further to explain that there was no such project as Nigeria Air, and it was trailed with a lot of secrecy and fraudulence. He stated that it wasn't really a Nigerian plane, it was an Ethiopian plane that had Nigeria printed on it. And of course, this has gotten a lot of Nigerians to react, many of which are upset by this latest revelation and have gone on X to share their reactions. We're going to be taking a number of their tweets regarding this. Now, we, of course, will be looking at the tweets, and remember that you can always tweet at us at News Central TV to share your own thoughts. The Duke of Nigeria says, Festus Keyamo suspends Nigeria Air or Air Nigeria project indefinitely. Festus came with a mission: destroy everything done by Hadi Sirika. Wow. All right. Bashir Ahmed says, I read that the federal government has indefinitely suspended the Nigeria Air project. I do hope that after thorough review and consideration, the administration will resuscitate the project as it is in the best interest of Nigeria. Now, he's come heavily criticized for this tweet because, of course, he was in the past administration where Hadi Sirika launched this quote-unquote fraudulent Air Nigeria project. Okweroluwa says, Hadi Sirika connived with ETA to display a chartered airplane as Nigeria Air. Some things are unbelievable. Still looking at more, Big Wig Austin says, how Hadi Sirika still hasn't had the Emefiele treatment beats me. This is, of course, regarding to how Emefiele, a number of people have shared how they were very displeased with how Emefiele was treated, and that now Hadi Sirika is working, quote-unquote, freely. If EFCC should continue digging. I'm sure Hadi Sirika's 2.7 billion naira fraud is small in comparison to the embezzlement by other ministers during Buhari's tenure. What exactly was Buhari even doing during his tenure when all this was happening? This is from Mufida. And of course, that is the tweet, or these are some of the things that Nigerians are saying regarding the Nigeria Air project suspended indefinitely. Now, what are you saying? Let us know by tweeting at News Central TV. We head to the next story with the updates regarding the Battle of the Emirates in Kano. Sanusi Lamido, of course, has been reinstated as the 16th Emir of Kano, and a number of people are not taking this lightly. The latest development is that the court has given a judgment, the State High Court in Kano State has given a judgment stating that, of course, the status quo be maintained, and they've asked that Ado Bayero be arrested. We do not know what this will mean, but currently, Kano State has 2 emirs, in the different parts of the state. Let's look at what Nigerians are saying on X regarding this and some of the tweets that they've shared. From Dambata, he says, 2 federal high court judges gave contradicting judgments regarding the Kano State Emirate tussle. Justice Liman halts the removal of Aminu Ado Bayero, while Justice Amina ordered him to stop parading himself as Kano Emir. Seems this Kano drama is just getting started. Now, some people will say that when there are 2 equal equities, the first in time prevails. That's some of the tweets I've seen in response to that. Now, Fatima Gamburaka says, if not for the pitiful system of government we have, how would Ganduje be a governor in a state where someone like His Royal Highness Khalifa Mohammed Sanusi II exists? Princes on foot, slaves on horses. Who is Ganduje without political power? Like they say on social media, stray bullet has touched Ganduje, but we won't really call it stray bullet because he had a critical role to play, when this whole situation started in 2020. Duke Howard Ashoyan says, I'm a Kwankosite and I know it's really not my business, but growing up, we knew the Bayero family as the rightful family of emirs. I don't know how Sanusi Lamido, though I like him, came into the scene. I sincerely pray for the peace of the state and the rightful thing be done. Like we say, it is all about politics. We talked about this earlier on the show, and it just basically is a battle of the political powers. Sakin Mota says, the 15th Emir of Kano, Aminu Ado Bayero, said, nobody is above the law, so I hope he obeys this court order that stops him from assuming the role of the emir and his immediate eviction from the emir's Nasarawa residence. We wonder how this is eventually going to play out and if exactly he is going to allow himself be quote-unquote arrested. Honorable Abdul Jabbar Umar says, today I officially removed the picture of the dethroned Emir of Kano, Alhaji Aminu Ado Bayero, and replaced it with a new picture of the current Emir, Malam Muhammadu Sanusi II. The move also demonstrates the government and the good people of Kano State's recognition of MS2. I don't know if we have the picture, but there were pictures of him actually removing and installing the new photo of Emir Sanusi. And let's take a few more tweets. Henry says, that means Aminu Bayero is deposed. All the other emirates are gone. This is backwards for Kano development. Why all these power-drunk politicians bringing personal vendetta to society development? I hope this settles it all. That's what Henry thinks. In the FBI, Olafemi Victor 9, very interesting handle, says, of course, the removal of Sanusi Lamido was a slap to the great tradition of Kano State. His reinstatement, I believe, is the best thing. FR, that's for real, in Gen Z English. And these are some of the things that we've seen on X regarding what Nigerians are saying concerning the Battle of the Emirates. There's going to be an update today. The court order has been given. There may or may not be an arrest happening today. But of course, as we get these stories, we will head to social media to get your reactions to what these stories are. Join us every day or every other day here on Breakfast Central to find out what Nigerians are saying.
Welcome back. The Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, has described the controversial Nigeria Air unveiled by the Buhari-led administration as a fraud. He added that it remained suspended. He noted that the national carrier that was supposed to be an indigenous project and one that was supposed to spark hope for Nigerians, was flawed with a lot of secrecy and fraudulent activities.
Keyamo made the declaration on Nigeria Air while responding to questions from journalists during the second day of the ministerial sectorial update on Monday, the 27th of May in Abuja. We're joined this morning by aviation researcher and publisher Godi Ike. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, good morning. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Hope you're well as well. Now, let's get into the meat of this conversation. This is not the first time that the conversation about Nigeria Air has been on our TV screens and in the social media space. Everyone has been talking about it. But this would be a very, I don't know if I would call it the first time that there will be an actual admission by the government that this was a fraudulent case. Does this then change the dynamics of how, one, Hadi Sirika's case will be handled, and two, the way that does it change the dynamics of how the aviation minister is being perceived, by the public?
Not for people like me. Maybe people who do not understand how the aviation sector works worldwide. By the way, it's important for you to know that aviation is a global business. Nations do their business in their nations, but decisions are made to affect activities globally. And therefore, anyone who does not understand how the sector works would get emotional and say things that are unnecessary and won't take time to take a good look at what exactly went on and what exactly is going on and what exactly should go on. So I'm not carried away. If you ask further questions about what I think about what went on and what appears to be going on right now, I will give you answers. However, let me mention that I watched that program live. I think that was yesterday, and I must tell you that the Honorable Minister Keyamo was too emotional for my liking, was too emotional to actually make real sense to people like me. Nigerians have keyed into the emotion and are saying all sorts of things out of ignorance. And it's not their fault that they are ignorant of what's going on in the aviation sector, because aviation is a highly, highly technical sector. And before you understand it, you must dig really very deep.
All right, Mr. Ike, can you hold on? Yeah. Let's share, the clip from the aviation minister, and then we'll have you react to it. Let us know exactly what you found, what faults you find with it, and then we'll also go deeper into Hadi Sirika, and the expense that was put into the, now termed fraudulent Nigeria Air. So let's quickly share the clip first.
It was never Air Nigeria. It was Ethiopian Air trying to flag our flag. It was not Air Nigeria. That is the truth. There was not an Air Nigeria. It was only painted Air Nigeria. It was Ethiopian airline trying to fly our flag. If it is so, why not allow our local people to fly our flag? Why bring a foreigner to fly our flag? So nobody should deceive that it was Air Nigeria. Air Nigeria must be indigenous, must be wholly Nigeria, or must be for the full benefits of Nigeria. Not that 60% of the profit was another country. How does that benefit us? How? It remains suspended. It remains so.
All right, Godike, let's have your thoughts on, on the minister's statements. What fault you find with it, and then also the expenditure that Hadi Sirika is accused of mismanaging with the Nigeria Air project. You get into that also.
Okay, number one, I found the Honorable Minister too emotional for my liking, too emotional for the job he's handling. It's not a job that needs you to be emotional. It's a job that needs you to think deeply and study and understand the business that you are supposed to be managing, so that you can you can do it properly and say the proper things. So that's number one fault I found. When you're emotional, you're not likely to make a whole lot of sense, out of what you are dealing with, and that is quite natural. And so number two it is not true that when you want to have an indigenous airline, that it just has to be, wholly indigenous. Partnership is part of global business, because without partnership, especially as a starter, you are likely never to succeed, because that's what gives you your share of route network, and also that's what gives you that market share that you need. Buying airplanes with slush funds, for instance, and dumping them in a nation and giving them a name does not give them route network, does not give them profitability, and it's just exactly what it is: slush funds. And if you bring in 100% and clean up 30%, the 30% becomes clean, good money, and for those who are doing this kind of business, they are happy to have 30% out of 100, of slush funds, turned into clean money. Not because they made profit. No, the interest in there is not profit making. So if you are dealing with a situation where you want to make profit as an airline, you must engage in partnership. It's not compulsory that you buy airplanes and own them. It doesn't even make sense to buy them. It's a waste of money. You lease them, and then develop partnerships here and there that will give you the route network that you need in order to succeed. That is fundamentally what I noticed that the Honorable Minister does not yet understand, and the reason for him not understanding that is quite understandable, because, to tell you the truth, I don't see what business he has to control the aviation industry of a nation.
All right, so he obviously got that one wrong, but I'm sure it's also maybe because of the expectations Nigerians had with the way Hadi Sirika had presented the idea of Nigeria Air. It sounded like we're going to be buying our own planes, we're going to be getting into partnerships to get our own airplanes, and the controversy concerning Ethiopian Airlines was just too dirty at that time. But I want you to speak on Hadi Sirika himself. There were claims then, that the logo was created in Bahrain and cost about $600,000. There's just so much. He's currently, of course, being to court, with allegations of money laundering with himself, his daughter, and son-in-law. So speak about it, and do you think that would ever get the money back that was expended on Nigeria Air?
Well, anytime investigation, unveils misconduct, every nation of the world, every serious-minded nation must do everything to get back its lost money if you prove that some money was lost. And so you already mentioned that Hadi Sirika used his brother and used his, what did you say, son, and the rest of them. That was not a proper conduct, because we have our rules and regulations on how things get done in government business. And therefore, it was a fundamental error on his side. Now, on the other hand, the idea of partnering with Ethiopian airline and the branding an Ethiopian-owned airline into Nigeria Air is no news at all. It's absolutely, there's no problem with that. For as long as the agreement reached, which should be actually the focus of the current minister, take a good look at the agreement reached, find those areas that are not beneficial to Nigeria or not fair to Nigeria as a nation, and renegotiate them, and then move forward from there. I won't advise Mr. President Bola Tinubu to ever consider dumping money on going to acquire new airplanes in the name of setting up the so-called indigenous Air Nigeria or Nigeria Air, whatever you want to call it. I won't subscribe to that, because it's a waste of money, and you are likely you are likely not to break even. You are likely not to, succeed in that business. The way how the Sirica set out to do it was the appropriate way to do it. Unfortunately, perhaps things were shrouded in too much in secrecy for people who should advise and who should know, better how to succeed in what he set out to do.
Unfortunately,
it was an error.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was an error.
Unfortunately, we have to interject now because we've run out of time and we need to wrap up. But we certainly want to have you again because there are many layers to this conversation that we want to have this morning. So we say thank you so much for joining us, and we apologize for having to cut so quickly. Thank you so much to our audience, to our viewers, to our guests, and those who joined us physically and virtually. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. Thank you for your time with us. And we'll be back tomorrow for our Democracy Day special. So please tune in here on Breakfast Central to be a part of Democracy Day special. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Olive Emodi, and I'll see you tomorrow.
And I'm Osaogi Ogbon. See you tomorrow.